Good evening. Welcome to another episode of Fifth Down Territory. And just like the NFL, half of our remaining members are gone.
Yeah.
Tyler and Bahookie are headed over to Mobile right now to hit on the Senior Bowl for this week. So practices started today. They'll be covering that starting tomorrow. So keep a lookout for that. That's going to be on our Stadium Rant socials. They'll be tweeting about it on their own socials. So, Stadium Rant. And at Bahookie Montana on X, they'll be on there live talking about a lot of that stuff. And we're going to go ahead and just kind of give you guys a rundown. I know Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, some of those things aren't as familiar to people. So really what these are, right, they're kind of two sides of the same coin, in my opinion. I don't think Nagy would appreciate that very much. But Senior Bowl is a really nice thing they put on down here in Mobile. They use one of the local college stadiums, high school stadiums. I think it's a college stadium, and they do a lot of the mid-draft pick guys. They get a chance to play, do 1v1 drafts. A lot of GMs and coaches come out and watch those games. JC's on here going crazy because his birds are going to the bowl again. We'll get to this in a minute. But yeah, I'm sure we're going to have stuff to talk about with that. But anyway, so we just kind of want to give you guys a rundown about like why you should care about the Senior Bowl. I went last year with Bahookie, actually. Blake and I went last year to the game. I made a couple other practices, like a little bit, but one of the standouts from last year was Quinion Mitchell. I know that's a name JC's going to know and love, but Bahookie and I were sitting there, right, watching Quinion Mitchell, and I'm like, this is transcendently like the best corner I've ever seen in person. Like, I haven't gone to a lot of NFL games live, but I've been to college games, high school games, whatever, and I was like, this kid's just built different. We got to see Michael Penix throw a little bit. We got to see Luke McCaffrey, right? They just got eliminated, but we got to see him last year. So there were some names there of people that have translated to the NFL. So this is a good place to get some early inside looks, maybe get a little bit of a head start on your team's draft profiles. But yeah, I know you've got some guys highlighted. So why don't you go ahead and take it and tell them like a couple of the guys you're looking forward to seeing covered this week.
Sure. So I know this was kind of a big talking point that me, Tyler, and Bahookie had in last week's show, was that this is an absolutely stacked quarterback class for the Senior Bowl this year. I mean, you think about it, most of the guys that were just in the college football playoff, most of them are going to be at the Senior Bowl this year. So the name that I kind of point out the most, he was in the Heisman running, was Dylan Gabriel from Oregon. Mostly because he got eliminated early, and that kind of cut away at his draft stock maybe just a tiny, tiny bit. So now, I mean, the Senior Bowl, I think, is a good opportunity for him to go back in and prove, all right, I'm still worth a mid-first or a second-round draft pick, if that's where teams are kind of looking. I don't think he is a top 10 quarterback per se, but, preserving that draft stock or improving it back up to maybe where it was pre-Ohio State playoff game. So that was one big name. Another one was for running backs. This is a good running back class as well this year. Devin Neal out of KU. I know Tyler talked about him last week as well. Just a solid all-around running back that I think is going to be an absolute diamond in the rough steal, in that late first, mid-second round type thing. And he's just going to be good. He's going to be a bit of a project if teams want to, give him a year in the NFL, but overall, man, I really like Devin Neal. And then on the defensive side, one name I wanted to bring up to you, and this is going back to that cornerback room. This guy is very, very similar to Quinion Mitchell, where it's like, damn, this kid's going to be good at the next level, and that's Quincy Riley out of Louisville. 5-tool guy, going to be able to do everything pretty much from day one, any kind of coverage, and not to mention he has the selling point of I'm a special teams guy too. And when you can enter into the NFL your rookie year and say I'm a 5-tool on defense, but at the same time, if you want to put me in and punt and kick return, I can run the ball back too. So he's bringing a lot to the table. So those are three names that kind of stood out the most to me as far as, those big time positions that a lot of teams are going to be looking at or scouting the most, at least from this year's class.
Yeah. And right. So it's easy for people to be like, oh, these guys have pro days. But pro days are just thrown against air, right? Zach Wilson had a great pro day. Obviously, that didn't translate to the NFL really well. I think Bo Nix actually might have been at Senior Bowl last year. I'd have to ask Bahookie about that. But the difference is like you're playing against guys who are going in the second, third round. Second, third rounders start in the NFL, right? So you're playing against a team, right? Maybe there's no elite game records. There's no first overall talents, no Myles Garrett's, whatever. But you're also not throwing to first round wide receivers most of the time. Like maybe you're throwing against first round corners sometimes, stuff like that. So GMs and coaches, scouts take this pretty seriously. I think one of the big names, Tyler's here, right? Bo Nix was there last year. I thought he was. So some of those guys are right. And he went surprisingly high. And the Broncos had scouts there. So, it makes a difference. I'm kind of excited for Jalen Milroe at this year's. He's on the roster. I don't know if he'll play in the game on Saturday. He's definitely going to be throwing in practices all week. But, this is a very toolsy, Anthony Richardson-esque quarterback, I think. I think that's how he could be looked at by a lot of people. And so he has a lot to gain, I think, from having a really good Senior Bowl week. This is a guy I think could go higher than people think. And I think slightly different story. We could be talking about him as a lock in the top half of the first round. So, I'm not sure where he's going to go. How about Shedeur Sanders? So Shedeur went to Shrine Bowl, which is kind of like a parallel thing to this, but he did his practices. He didn't play the final day of practice. Just did a lot of the interview style stuff. But I think Shedeur's a top 5 lock, Bernard. 1 overall might be a stretch. I think Cam Ward's probably the first quarterback off the board right now. We'll get into some of that in the offseason. But I think his partner in crime, Travis Hunter, has a really good chance to go first overall to the Titans. So we'll see what shakes out there. But Tyler, he's pointing out Jack Beck. He's a TCU wide receiver. He's going to be there. And from what I was seeing, he had a really good first day of practice. I believe he was referred to by some of the guys that I follow as a taller Tank Dell. Take that as you will. But there's definitely some guys here that have something to prove. Tez Johnson is another name going around. He's a wide receiver from Oregon. I think he's going to be a big name to watch. I think this could really help his draft stock. And then there's some really good defensive players here. There's a couple good really tackles in this class. And I think there's some guys who are trying to make their case to sneak into the bottom of the first or top of the second, as opposed to, going in the third. But anyway, all of that to say, make sure you're staying tuned in. They'll have a recap on the show next week. They're going to be live talking about a lot of the games, giving recaps, articles, and stuff. So make sure you're checking out Stadium Rant. Make sure you're following them. And we'll make sure that we're bringing you guys an inside look at some of the draft prospects coming up in this year's class. But there's 2 teams remaining who don't have to look at the draft yet. The Eagles and the Chiefs, a rematch from 2 years ago. And the Chiefs are seeking to complete the three-peat the same way they started it, with a victory over Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. So I know that's kind of what's on the top of everybody's mind. There's a lot of people who aren't excited for this Super Bowl. Right. Not going to watch it. You guys listen to the comments. Are you watching the Super Bowl? I've seen so much hate about this matchup. And people hate greatness, right, Nolan? Like we look back now when we talk about MJ as the GOAT. Man, people hated MJ back in the day. They got so tired of the Bulls, not the Bills. They got so tired of the Bulls winning that he double three-peated. So, but Mahomes definitely making the case to no longer be called Baby Goat and just be straight up called GOAT. So we'll see what shakes. But I think it's a good storyline. I think there's a lot of get back. Saquon gets a ring if the Eagles win. DeAndre Hopkins gets a ring if the Chiefs win. But I think those are both guys with Hall of Fame aspirations, and I think a ring helps their case tremendously, right? If Hopkins doesn't win a ring, I don't know if we talk about Hopkins as a first ballot or even, right? So Barkley, the case maybe could be made, but I still think you almost have to have a ring as a skill position player to get in, especially at those high profile. Obviously, Andre Johnson, Texans fan. Andre never won one. He made it in eventually, but I think Hop's chances go way up with a ring. So I think there's some good storylines to watch. But let's focus back in on the teams that almost made it, right? One game away. Tyler says, most unwatchable Super Bowl ever. That's so not true, because that Rams Patriots?
You guys, 13-3 Super
Bowl. It was like
Bowl.
the worst game I've ever seen.
Don't even.
That was a bad one. Yeah.
That was Jared Goff's. That was early Jared Goff on the Rams.
Goff.
And it was like 7-3 at halftime or something like that. I mean,
I think it might have been 6-3 at halftime. I don't know if anybody scored a touchdown in the first half. I'd have to go back and look, but yeah. So let's focus in on the teams that didn't quite make it over the hump. We'll talk about the Bills second. Let's start with the Commanders. A massively overperforming elite defense is fun. It's fun for some people. I don't think the casual football fan appreciates elite defense. The Commanders, right? This is a team that incredibly outperformed every expectation set in front of them this year, from projected like 4-13, 5-12, all the way to a championship appearance. And at the end of the day, I really think we're looking at this team as the worst it's probably ever going to be under Jaden Daniels' tenure. Like, truthfully, I don't think they go into next season with an offensive line as porous as they have this year. I don't think they go into next year with as bad of a run defense as they had this year. I don't think he's going to be throwing to, I can't think of his name right now, their third string wide receiver. So it's like Terry, it's McCaffrey, but there's another guy in there.
Zacchaeus.
Olamide Zacchaeus, right? I don't think that's a name Jaden Daniels is going to put many more stats on the board with.
Or old Jamison Crowder.
Yeah.
So still running around out there.
Yeah, if I'm in the NFC East and I'm the Eagles, right, there probably is a heightened sense of urgency a little bit here because you have an emerging really good team in your conference. So if I'm Nick Sirianni, okay, thank the Lord I'm not. Where's JC? I need JC to weigh in on some of this. But if I'm Sirianni, the prospects of losing this Super Bowl feel close to career ending, okay? Because you'll have proved you can make it to the big game, but you can't get over the hump against the same team twice, and you're not ever a lock to win this division. The Cowboys are somehow always scrappy, but now you also have the Commanders to contend with, and they're looking like a really good team. So, are you ever going to have this chance again? And losing to the same team twice, not every team is Shanahan. Like, not every coach is Shanahan style proof. And I think there's some questions around if he can get the job done with what on paper is a significantly better team. But yeah, what did you think about the Commanders' performance overall this year? Obviously, everyone's pleasantly surprised, but what do you think their future holds? What would you do leading into next year?
Honestly, I think the main thing that really just kind of shot them in the foot was not having Daron Payne, their Pro Bowl defensive tackle out there. He was hurt, he was injured, did not play. That's a big name guy that creates a lot of commotion up the middle, and that was how the Commanders were able to kind of force teams' hand with their pass rushes when he was creating holes, and then their linebackers like Bobby Wagner and company would make plays. So without that, that it definitely you could tell that they were missing some pieces. I would think that defense is going to be their number one priority. Their secondary, they added Marshawn Lattimore, obviously, but they still have a lot of work to do. I mean, they give up way too many yards and points. You're never going to, I think, see that next step if you give up 30 a week. So it's really tough. So I think that'll be their kind of next step, at least in my opinion. Take that with a grain of salt from somebody on the opposite side of the spectrum in the conference, but definitely think that defense will be their main focus. You've got good offensive weapons, bring guys like Austin Eckler back. Brian Robinson is your mainstay. That's your RB1 now. Pay Scary Terry, and then maybe go see what the wide receiver market looks like if you can get that next guy. If maybe there's a seasoned veteran, hey, say D-Hop does not return to the Chiefs next year, and he's looking to stay on a contender. If the price is right, somebody like that. So add to your team in those areas that you kind of saw them take the most hits in. And Tyler, that is definitely a name to watch. I could see that being a very enticing move. Hey, young quarterback in Jaden Daniels, good offense under Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. It's enticing. So if they can do that with one more receiver and then maintain most of their defense and then add a few guys in that secondary, I think they're going to be in a pretty good spot, and they're going to be contending in the NFC East for the foreseeable future. Jaden Daniels has proven right away that he is ready for the big show. And I know a lot of people are saying it's kind of like RG3, where RG3 stepped in and immediately it was like he knew everything that needed to happen. Now, I hope Jaden Daniels does not get cursed with RG3's knees. But if he stays healthy, this team will be good, and they're going to be a problem in the NFC overall moving forward.
Yeah, I think the other thing to talk about, which, I mean, this is a throwback to last draft. We didn't see a lot of him this year, but Jerzon Newton was a guy I would have pegged as a top 10 draft pick at like DT, going in top 10 to 16 picks. He just had an injury, and there were concerns about it. But he got on the field. He played the back half of this year. He looked pretty good. When Daron Payne and Jerzon Newton are on the field together, I think this Commanders defense has the ability to be formidable. Bring in a good edge rusher, bring in a wide receiver, bring in a tackle, some offensive line help. I mean, I don't think this is that far off. So, yeah. Heading to the other side of the tracks, I want to take a minute, okay? I know we're going to talk about the Chiefs, and I have a lot of feelings about the Chiefs as well. It's impossible to deny greatness. I don't feel like the refs cost anybody this game. Looking back, I don't feel like the refs cost the Texans that game either. I was in my feels a little bit, okay? Who wouldn't be? But I am devastated for Josh Allen. You can say whatever you want about he had a chance to tie the game, whatever. Every time it has mattered, this man has put up points. And, the Stephon Diggs drop, the Dalton Kincaid drop, the Tyler Bass missed field goal, the 13 seconds, and then not getting the ball in overtime. That's 4 meaningful playoff games that have been lost to the same team because of supporting cast. Okay? I saw the discourse about, he should have thrown the orbit to Khalil Shakir, right? I saw that going around Twitter like wildfire. Whatever. It's a perfect from a film perspective. You can nitpick every play of every game ever. Josh Allen isn't the greatest quarterback in the league. I think he's verging on Aaron Rodgers. I'm the most talented quarterback in the league, and I can't win. I feel like we may look back on his career in a very similar way. You say whatever you want about A-Rod. A-Rod only has 1 ring. I think Allen gets one at some point, and I think the story of his career is going to be very similar in the sense, look how good this guy was, and they could never get it done.
Yeah.
What do you think, Noel?
Honestly, the comparisons I've seen the most, and again, it will require him to win a couple Super Bowls, is the Brady Manning comparison. It unfortunately, Peyton Manning is one of the greatest quarterbacks to ever pick up a football. And there's no doubt about that. Statistically, go look at the numbers. It's all there. But he just so happened to play in the same conference as arguably the greatest quarterback to ever live. And he had to get around that. Now, and he did a couple times. He did once in Indianapolis, and then he did again with Denver all those years later to close out his career. But he just was it was a bad era for him to try to be at the top of the mountain because there was somebody who just continued to beat him to get to the top of the mountain. And that's just how I view it. It's Josh Allen is a incredible player. He's an athletic quarterback that brings the dual threat that makes him a dangerous and valuable quarterback. He just happens to have to try to deal with Kansas City every year. And that's how it's going to be for the next 5 or 6 years. Even without Travis Kelce, Patrick Mahomes is still going to be throwing the ball in 3 to 4 years, even if he's not there. Like it's just going to be like that. And
the unfortunate reality is that, people talk about fall offs. I got my comment here from Josh. I want to put up. If they win this year, they being the Chiefs, Reed and Kelce could retire, and that would hurt the Chiefs dynasty. The truth of the matter is we're living in a prime of Patrick Mahomes for another 6 years. Okay, this guy is going to be in his prime for another 6 years. So if Andy Reid left, yes, that would hurt because the play calling and all that stuff, like losing one of the greatest offensive minds in football is never good. But it's hard to say they're not going to be in the playoffs every year until Patrick Mahomes is out of his prime. Maybe the conference championships appearance is slow, right? He misses a year or two, but we're not talking about this going anywhere anytime soon.
No, and I'll get back into Buffalo here in a second, but just to kind of add on to this, Josh, the way I view it is the first domino out of those two that would fall would probably be Kelce. Just because, he has nothing left to prove, and neither does Andy Reid, quite frankly. But if
one guy's putting on a lot of hours, and it's intensive. The other guy's getting hit every single week. We talk about Andy Reid being a senior citizen. That's fine. He's only 65. We're not talking about
Carroll's 73.
We're not talking about Andy Reid being. He is retirement age, but people specifically of his generation are very known to work past retirement age. So,
if I don't see Andy Reid being gone within the next 2 years, even it would have to be something drastic. It really would. Go if the Chiefs, God forbid, if the Chiefs win the Super Bowl and then if they four-peated, and I'm Andy Reid, then maybe retirement might be calling my phone a little bit faster. Then, and only then, would I, if I was him, would I consider it? And I know he'll consider it this offseason if, Tyler, you wish. and I know, JC, you don't want the three-peat either. I'm being hypothetical at this point.
Yeah.
But I just don't see him going anywhere. It's not going to happen. At least with Andy Reid. If they win this one, I could see Kelce considering it a little bit, just because it's like LeBron. You don't have anything else to win. You have nothing to prove. You've toppled the records that you wanted to topple. You've won the Super Bowl amounts that you want to win. You've done it all. There's nothing else left for you to do but retire to your summer home with Taylor Swift and help her write the next album. That's it. That's all he's got to do. But we're not talking we don't want to get too far into the Chiefs stuff because I want to save some of that
Super Bowl preview week. We're going to do next week. We got a week off.
Yes. But as far as Buffalo goes, I mean, they dealt with a lot of injuries kind of through the mid part of the season, where they're waiting for guys to come back. He's just.
I'm not leaving.
I'm not fucking leaving. I think Buffalo just has to maybe find like that. I don't really know. It's kind of weird. I don't know how to describe it because they're in the same spot every year. It's not like they, miss the playoffs this year and then they come back here. Like it's not like that. They're in the same spot every year, either a divisional matchup with Kansas City or an AFC Championship maybe every other year. So I don't see any issue with their team other than could you maybe go get one more wide receiver or something like that? Sure, I guess. But they have the team. Again, this is where I go back to the Brady Manning thing. They have a team that is capable of winning a Super Bowl. I believe that 110%. They just happen to have to go through Kansas City, and that's the wall. Is Kansas City just does those little things good down the stretch, and it comes down to one or two plays. So, I mean, I don't know, man. Yeah. I have no problem with Buffalo's team. If they retain everybody, look how they played all year. If they retain everybody, they're going to be right back where they are now. They're just going to have to find those couple of plays down the stretch. That is it. I have no complaints about them other than I'm glad you're at home because I'm wearing this hat now. So, I mean, that's about where I'm at on Buffalo.
Yeah.
Love you, Bahookas.
Yeah, Buffalo to me is just like, I think when we look back on the Brandon Beane era of roster building in Buffalo, he's going to be known for taking big swings. He took the big swing and it paid off on Josh Allen. I'm pretty sure, I wish Bahookie was here. He's like my Bills fact checker. I'm pretty sure Brandon Beane is the one that drafted Josh Allen. I'd put money on it. I'm almost positive. Okay. But anyway, it's been a story of this series of acquisitions, and I feel like more of them have failed than not. The Stephon Diggs swing for the fence didn't get you where you needed to go. I think it was a good trade. It just didn't work. The Von Miller acquisition, I think, looks worse and worse with every passing season. That Kaiir Elam move, like some of those little things. And then it comes down to your first-round draft pick playing 15 yards off of a wide receiver that you passed on in the draft. It's things like that, right? I almost think that if the Bills took the approach that the Eagles have taken to roster building, they'd be in the Super Bowl right now, right? The Eagles run the picks in, and I have said before, like, I truly believe Howie Roseman might have been some dude on Twitter before he got this job, because he literally just does like the most popular mock draft take every single year, and it works every single year.
The Philadelphia Bulldogs, as they call them. He loves drafting Georgia,
he takes
man.
the obvious pick, the dude that slides. I swear that man might not even think about it. He's just like, I can't believe that guy's still on the board. Pick. But if the Bills took the approach of like, and I'm not saying like, right, somebody in here, where's the Spags comment? I'm going to put this back up. I got to go way back for this. All right, somebody commented. I don't see it right now. But there it is. JC commented, okay, I wish someone would hire Spags as a head coach so we don't got to see that Chiefs defense anymore. Okay, I am not a fan of building your roster to hurt somebody else's roster. But the truth of the matter is, you can't tell me you look at Xavier Worthy, even as a draft prospect, and be like, nah, we got Mac Hollins. I'm good. Like, Mac Hollins is an okay player. He's not an Xavier Worthy level player. You've got the best deep ball thrower in the league. You trade back a meaningless 5 picks to take who I still think is going to be a good receiver in Keon Coleman. Okay. But then we're right back to this thing where it's like you overthought it. So the one team that you don't want to benefit from it benefits from it. And now here we are. And you're looking the wrong way through the glass again. And if I'm Josh Allen, if I'm Josh Allen, at some point I might want to be like, hey, I want more say in offensive draft, right? We know Brady had say in who they drafted. Mahomes has say in who KC drafts. CJ Stroud has say in who the Texans draft, right? He said, I want Tank Dell. They took Tank Dell. He was a rookie. You never hear that. Like, oh, Josh Allen's like, oh, I really wanted Keon Coleman. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know.
Well, not to mention that pick got traded. So they moved back one, and then they traded 32 again. And Xavier Legette went 32 to Carolina. So, I
don't like Xavier Legette more than
no, and I don't. Coleman. But, I mean, it's just kind of the whole idea. And, I mean, I've heard Bahookie say this too, is that Coleman was high on their draft boards. I thought Kansas City was going to take Keon Coleman. I had him on Kansas City's draft boards. But then Worthy falls all the way down to where he was, and Kansas City just couldn't pass on it. So, I mean, it worked out. It worked out for Buffalo because they, like Tyler's saying, they did get who they wanted. They got who they wanted. It just, unfortunately.
So, so maybe a monologue in futility here because I'm kind of preaching on exactly what happened. But, at some point it just feels like where do you go from here?
Exactly.
It's like, are we just gonna run this back next year, get to the same spot, hit the same end results? And I feel like Buffalo's done a good job of building so they don't have a window. You know, there's no players that I'm like, oh, they're going to lose these 4 dudes. And, you know, they're retaining Joe Brady. They're keeping, you know, all this stuff intact. It's just, it never seems to be quite enough. So, and, you know, I think if Bahookie were here, he would echo this. But what you don't want is you don't want the Allen to take that end of Peyton Manning career arc where he's like, hey, well, she got cut by the Colts. So, right, that's totally different. Or the Brady arc, right? Like, okay, no, I'm kind of done here. I'm going to go join this super stack team. And finally, you know, I'm going to pad my legacy a little bit. So I think the Bills have to find a way. Allen's under contract to like 28, I think 27, something crazy like that. But yeah, if I'm the Bills when it comes around to draft this year and the Chiefs are calling my phone, I'm not even answering.
Yeah.
whatever move is there is not worth it. It's not worth the criticism. It's not worth the optics. Just let it be.
Yeah, honestly. And then, like I've said, and I'm just kind of echoing here, I think Buffalo has a Super Bowl worthy team. They really are. They are a very, very good team, and they have solid level talent everywhere. They have the pass rush when they need it. Their linebacking core is next level when they're all healthy. They have the offensive weapons. I mean, Khalil Shakir and Keon Coleman can be dangerous on the field when they can get open. And then you add in your tight end mix of Dawson Knox and Dalton Kincaid. Those are weapons that can do it for you. But I'm curious just what they'll do. If they can find, maybe it's quite literally one more player. Maybe it is. It's quite literally one more player. Because I hate to tie the Chiefs back into this because I know they want to hear about it. But if you kind of look at that Chiefs roster, for the most part, Chris Jones and Travis Kelce were already there. Then you had a few of the other big guys come in, like L'Jarius Sneed. They were already there. And then they get Mahomes added into the process. And that was just that next building block in. And if they can do that, if it's literally one building block away, then I think they can make another run next year. Yeah, JC. Yeah. But if they can get that building block, then I see no reason why Buffalo won't be right back in it. They're going to be competing for as long as Josh Allen is under center. He'll get his big contract here soon. And who knows, maybe Buffalo will try to do again, I'm tying Kansas City in, what they did with Mahomes' contract. Give him that big deal. Pay him the big bucks, but backload the deal so that you can then have money freedom to go get guys to maybe improve your roster wherever you see fit. And maybe that's the answer, is you go get another veteran guy or you move up in the draft, get draft capital, whatever is.
No matter what the Browns say, if I'm the Bills, I would be like, I got 2 firsts and a second. Give me Myles Garrett.
Well, and the Browns guys that were there already said they are not taking any phone calls or having any conversations about Myles Garrett while they're at the Senior Bowl.
While they're at the Senior Bowl. That's a very specific window. While we're at but you're the Bills, you meander over, you be like, hey, you got a nice edge rusher over there, and no quarterback to speak of. What are you doing tonight?
Yeah.
Anyway, so I really we'll speak on this more next week. We'll have a big show next week and with Bahookie here, but the Bills feel like the biggest story to me of the offseason. How do the Commanders end the season on a hopeful note? And it feels like the Bills ended on just this total deflation. And I think that's the parity of the league in that way, where it's like how 2 teams can get to the same point and one be so exhilarated and one be so disappointed. It really goes to show how hard it is to win in the NFL. And speaking of Bahookie would take Max Crosby, Jeffrey Simmons, or another game wrecker. Yeah. Jeffrey Simmons would be nasty work. He's driving something. What a good friend you are, Tyler. Real quick, we're going to wrap the show here in a couple minutes early, but a couple quick things to talk about. Cowboys have officially hired Schottenheimer as their head coach. An interesting move, getting panned around the league, quite honestly. I don't think there were very many coaches who wanted to come to Dallas. I think they kind of penned themselves in here with this move. I don't love the Schottenheimer hire, but at the same time, what else do you do? Like Liam Cohen's not going to come over here. Ben Johnson's not going to come here, and Glenn probably didn't want to come here. So at some point, it's like you're scraping the bottom of the barrel or retreading another former Super Bowl winning coach who wasn't wanted, in Pete Carroll. Or you take a shot on the guy. Maybe you get ahead of the wagon. If not, you're doing it again in 2 years. It felt like an inevitability. When that initial report came out, I was like, this is exactly what's going to happen. There was no way around it. What did you think of the hire, Noel?
I thought it makes me want to puke, honestly. But
welcome to your David Culley era.
Yeah.
Enjoy it.
It's just, I don't know. It's very aggravating because there were other guys out there that Dallas did not set up interviews with. They did interview Robert Saleh, and they did talk to Kellen Moore. They did interviews with them, but clearly, I don't know if it was just a bad interview or they only wanted to do one, but I was in the same boat where I saw them. The Adam Schefter tweeted out, I believe it was, where he said, oh, the Cowboys have completed a second in-person interview with Schottenheimer. I was like, well, that's who it is. You didn't talk to anybody else 2 times.
That's who it is. Briefly the nasty work it was for them to decline Mike McCarthy's interview opportunity with the Bears right before they fired him?
Yeah.
If I'm a head coach
that they denied that,
I'm like, I'm good, man. I don't want to run that there.
And I'm sure he was happy to part ways with Dallas once that happened, because I think he still went and interviewed there anyway once he was technically a free agent coach.
Yeah, but it's like you're behind the 8 ball. Yeah.
You knew he wasn't going to be back. I mean,
yeah. And Jerry isn't known for his gracious spending. So I'm sure the contracts that these guys are receiving aren't like, oh, we broke the bank,
Jerry cuts corners.
Yeah. The Cowboys hired Liam Cohen. I'm not sure how you say his last name. I need to look that up, but which offensively, I think is an amazing hire for Trevor Lawrence, for Travis Etienne. I think he's brought out the best of some of those players this year. On a pure aura level, -1,000. What was that press conference, man? I just miss me. Stop doing the corny stuff, man. I would 10 out of 10 times take an Aaron and Glenn style interview, which was the most boring, factual, nail on the head kind of stuff that you could imagine compared to whatever the heck that was. Okay.
No, yeah, absolutely.
The first team ever to lose a bye week stuff going around. I was like, yeah, this is just nasty work. And then Aaron Glenn's the other one, head coach of the Jets. I like the hire for them. Their strength, I think, has been their defense. You bring in another defensive guy who can get the most out of a team. You're probably swinging on quarterback next year, given your draft position, or maybe they take a Milrow in the second or something like that. Maybe one of those guys falls, you trade up, get him at the bottom of the first, whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think this off-season head coaching cycle has kind of gone more or less how I've expected, except for the Jaguars actually getting a sought-after candidate.
No, yeah, and it was crazy that, I mean, there was a tweet that Cohen was going to be staying in Tampa as the OC on a huge new contract, and then he ghosts them and doesn't answer, flies to Jacksonville, and goes and just accepts the head coaching job right away. And it's like, wow, I mean, you do you. I bet Tampa's pretty pissed, but I don't know. That's going to be a pretty big project to try to fix in Jacksonville. Aaron Glenn has a few more pieces in place with the Jets. It's just, can you make it work? And I think the number one thing that I have seen or I found interesting, he needs to not try to be Dan Campbell. Don't try to replicate that. Be your own coach. Take your ideas from Detroit and things that worked for you there, but be your own head coach. This is familiar territory. You played there. They drafted you with a high pick. Make it your own and get the trust back from that team. I think that locker room is in dismay and has no trust for their coaching staff. Get the trust back. If you can earn Aaron Rodgers' trust, then I think you're going to be in a pretty good spot. But I don't know. Yeah. We'll see. It like I said, it wasn't surprising that Ben Johnson, we talked about him already last week, that Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn left. I just definitely did not see it happening as quickly as it did. Clearly, interviews were waiting, and it was in the books. If Detroit won the Super Bowl, I don't think they leave. I could see them staying. If it worked out and they won the whole thing, I could see a little bit of a negotiation there, and they don't leave. But because they lose in the fashion that they did, it made it very evident. All right, well, now's a good time, a good window for us to take our opportunity. And that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, well, we're going to wrap it there. We don't want to get into the Super Bowl preview. Join us next week. We're going to go in depth on our predictions, how the game's going to go, features, all that stuff. We'll have a big episode. And as always, right, check out stadiumrant.com. Great content, great videos on their website and stuff. So make sure you guys check that out. And then keep an eye out for Tyler and Bahookie's content. It's going to be on the Stadium Rant account. It's going to be on their personal accounts, right? At Bahookie Montana, at Stadium Rant, for all the Senior Bowl content. And we're going to have a recap next week. Thank you all for tuning in. And as always, we'll see you guys next time. I don't know where the outro is, so that's tough. So I guess we're just ending it.